Anyone here? Hey guys. Hello, hello. My first time streaming, by the way. Da da da. Can you get some music? But that'll be very cool. Ba 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 ba. No copyright. Music. Okay. Okay, so there were some questions. One of them was about midterm number two. Midterm number two, the format. Okay, so no matter what class you take. Okay, hold on. Feel free to ask questions. Okay, so no matter class you take, what class you take, and I'm teaching 190, then 227, 318, 401. The rules are, well, the format is the same. So the first, number one, hey, hello William. So the midterm is 75 minutes long. Okay, so basically as if you had a class, that would be like 75 minutes at your disposal. Normal class time. Number two, everything open. Everything open. Okay, number three, not accumulative. Not accumulative. So you only need to learn the material after the first midterm. Okay, so after the first midterm, you need to know all the well, definitely all the quizzes. Okay, so like hint, definitely repeat, prepare the questions from the quizzes. Okay. Okay, material after the first midterm. Yeah, okay. Quizzes. Then everything mentioned in lectures, both video offline and not both video offline or well the end in notes is a fair game. Okay, 35 minutes long, everything open. By everything I mean book, notes, internet. Okay. Not a cumulative, you only need to learn the material after the first midterm. Hint, definitely repeat, prepare the questions from the quizzes. Everything mentioned in the lectures is a fair game. Okay, so and 20, the grade for the second midterm is 20% of your final grade. Okay. 20% of 20% of the final grade. Okay. I think that's it. Okay, so basically the only thing you have to do, you need to figure out when the first midterm was. You need to go into the notes. You should just check the date when the first midterm was. Then basically find all the lectures, all the slides, and all the quizzes after that date, and up until again Tuesday, including Tuesday. On Tuesday we're also going to have a lecture, and then that's what you need to repeat. Okay. Okay, what else? By the way, yeah, so it should be Blackboard based. Blackboard based. Okay. You can take it anytime on Thursday. Anytime on Thursday. Yep. Yes, that's it. I think that should be it. Open, not a cumulative. Let me know if you guys have more questions, because I think I covered everything here. Okay, so one more question I was asked, that was about definitely put your questions in the comments. That's how we'll know what to answer. So one of the other questions I had was about Computer Science 227 iterators. Okay. So the question was, how does it work? It technically doesn't really matter like what class you're taking with me, 190, 227, 318, or 41. So if you're taking 190, that'll be interesting probably for you to know how iterators work. If you're taking 318 or 41, it may be useful for you to repeat that material. So the iterator and the way they work is the following. Let me open MS Paint Online. Okay, so the idea is this. Let's imagine that you have any data structure. Okay. More. Okay, maybe 50, maybe 60. Okay. So iterators are applicable to any data structure Um, okay, so I would say that iterators are applicable to any data structure which have sequencing, which means that you can represent data in the data structure as a sequence of elements. Okay, so for example, the simplest example is the array. Is an array. Okay. How would I move this? Okay, yeah. The simplest example would be an array, and here's how it works. So let's say, imagine you have an array. Let's say that is your array, and you have elements there. So that first element, second element, third element, fourth element, fifth element, sixth element. Okay. So let's imagine that you have an array of 6, let's say, integers, and you're gonna put here, like, I don't know, 10, 20, 5, 6, 7. The question from Harley, do you enjoy doing the classes online? Yes and no. So it's actually, and that's actually a question for you guys as well. I'm not sure. I'm actually wondering if you guys enjoy that as well, because it takes me a long time to produce it, because I have to set up the lights, and it's actually, well, especially at the beginning, it was taking me a long time. Then I need to record it. So I have a professional camera. Then I need to bring it back to Premiere Pro or DaVinci Resolve. I need to edit that, so I have to actually, I have to record the sound separately. I have professional mic. Then I need to reduce the noise and the sound. I need to put the background music. I need to color correct that. I'm not sure if you've seen in the intro, there was like I'm using software called DaVinci Resolve, and there was a frame in the intro where you saw the wheels like at the bottom left somewhere, and that's how you color correct the color correction. Yeah, so that takes some time. What else? Then I need to export it. Export it takes maybe like an hour for each lecture. So basically, it's just crazy. Like it takes me the entire day of working to just record full lectures, and also like and sometimes I have to re-record some lectures because I'm seeing that didn't explain it the best way, and I feel, I guess, self-conscious about that, and I have to re-record it. That rarely happens though, but it does. So no, I would probably rather prefer to teach everything offline. And I miss actually face-to-face interaction. That's one. And also what's crazy, so in my 190 class, I have 15 students, and I would post a lecture on Thursday. And what's crazy is that they would. So on Friday, I would have only 5 views. So there are 15 students in the class. On Friday I would have only 5 views, only 5, which means that at least like 10 of them didn't watch. And then on Friday we would have a lab. Okay, so that means that I'm not sure how they're gonna do that. But what I'm thinking is, what I'm trying to say is this though. I don't think that I think that students also lose some discipline when they go online. At least the way I'm doing that. Maybe if I get stricter with the students, maybe that will help. I don't know. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah. Okay. Can you guys see me, by the way? Looks like I froze. Anyway, cool. So, iterators. Okay, the simplest example is an array. So let's say you have an array like this. 10, 20, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And let's say you want to traverse this array. So you want to traverse it. What does that mean? Traverse it means you want to visit each element exactly once. Okay, so you want to visit, for example, this 10. So you want to visit this 10 first, then 20, then 5, then 6, then 7, then 89. Okay. And you want to visit exactly once. So what are the options you have? One of the options you would have is to use a for loop, and we all know how to do that. Okay, so if I switch, okay, so if I switch to here, Okay, for int I is equal to 0, I is less than array.length. Okay, I plus plus. And then over here, for example, if I want to, let's say, print it out, I would say system.out.println. Okay, I would say array of I, right? So that's what I can do if I want to print out element by element my entire array. Okay, so that's one of the ways of doing it. Another way of doing that would be to use a for each loop, right? Let me see. Nope, doesn't work. Okay, this kind of like keep. No, it doesn't work. Oh no, it does. Hold on. Cool. Okay. Okay. Another way of doing that would be for each loop. So we would say for int e colon array, right? And then we would say system.out.println e. Okay, I think that's the syntax. I think, or for each Java, for each loop in Java. Yeah, for. Okay, I'm right. Yeah, cool. Yeah, so for int e array. Yes, in this case, what changes is that we don't really have to say array of I. We don't have an index anymore. We're given an element. That element is called e. So at the very beginning, this e is 10. Then it becomes 20. Then it becomes 5. Then it becomes 6. Then it becomes 7. And then just it becomes like whatever it was, 80. Okay. That's not the way of doing that. There is a third way of doing that, and that's exactly what iterator is all about. So what iterator is, iterator allows you to create an object. Okay, so iterator is an object, and then as you call it, so at the very beginning, that iterator would hold the element, which is the first element of your array. So it will be 10. It will basically copy this 10 over here. Okay, and then every time you call in a function which is called, let's say our iterator is called iterator. Every time you call in .next, this 10. So this our iterator is the element inside the iterator is being swapped. So it's not the 10 anymore, but it's in the element after the 10. Okay, so the first time we call it, it will be swapped from. It'll be instead of 10, we'll get 20. Okay. Okay. Yes. And then next time you call the iterator.next, iterator. Next time we call iterator.next, this 20 becomes this 5. Okay. So in other words, it becomes like this. In other words, every time you call an iterator.next, every time you call on .next on the object of the iterator, which is supposedly created before, the object inside that iterator is being changed to the next one. So it's 10, then it's 20, then it's 5, then it's 6. Okay. Yeah. So another thing you can use is this iterator that has next. So the method iterator that has next returns either true or false if there is an object in your original array which is behind the element you're talking about. So for example, at the very beginning we're talking about 10, right? Then iterate.next would return true for that moment because after the 10 there is something exists which is 20. Okay, and then when iterator has the value of 20, iterator that has next would also return true, because there is 5 behind it. And then when we're talking about the 5, iterator that has next would return 6, right? So it will return true because there is 6 behind it. But when we're talking about 80, iterator that has next will return false because there is nothing behind it, which means that we reached the end of the array. The way I like to describe this is this. Imagine that you have very old like music machine. So you have a disc. Imagine you have a not a compact disc, but the disc like vinyl disc, right? So imagine you have that, and imagine you have the playhead. So in the center, right? And imagine you have a playhead, and it looks like something like this, right? And that thing, when it touches, so you spin the disc, and that thing, when it touches the disc, it produces the sound, okay? The playhead, the needle on the playhead, at least in Russian it's called needle. So something similar to that. So that is your disc. That's your disc. That's your disc, okay? And the iterator is the playhead. Iterator is the playhead. Okay, and then you have a needle. Okay, yeah. So that's the iterator. Whenever you call that next, that thing, that playhead moves like this. Then you call that next again, it moves over here. You call that next again, it moves over here. Then it moves over here, then it moves over here. When it's 80 and you're trying to iterate that next, it cannot move anymore, so it returns you an error. Okay, so that's kind of the way it works. It just, I guess it's similar to for each loop. It's just a bit more convenient sometimes. Okay, now let's talk about the syntax of how you create the iterator. Well, okay, so what are the methods we have? We have next, that next. Sometimes we have previous has previous. So next has next, previous has previous. And I think we have remove. So Java iterator. Yeah, has next, next, remove. Okay, and then collection, the last element returned by the iterator. Okay, perfect, yeah. So ideally, at the very beginning, in the interface iterator, we only have 3 methods. These 3. Well, don't think about this one. But has next, next, and remove. Sometimes for separate classes, we may have be able to traverse it backwards. So basically, like has previous and previous. Has next, next, remove. Okay, and you keep in mind that's an generics. It's an interface for generics, which means that it can be any data type. It really depends on what you're calling it on. Okay. Now, what does remove do? Let's discuss what that remove does. Let's say your playhead is currently over here at 6. Okay. Which means that when you were on 5 and then you called iterator.next. Okay. When you called iterator.next, you move from 5 to 6. Okay, so it basically, which means that last time you called iterator.next, it returned you 6. So after that, if you call iterator.remove, no, that's bad. Okay, let's call it again. It.remove. Okay, so if you call it.remove, it's going to remove the last element which it returned when it was traversing the collection. So in our case, again, if the iterator was looking at 5 and then you switched it to 6, which means it returned 6, and then you call it.remove, it's going to remove 6 from the collection. Okay, it's going to remove this 6, and in this case your the array in the simplest case, but most likely will be an array list. In this case, that 6 it will not going to be exist anymore. It's going to be 10, 25, 7, and 80. That's it. That's what you're going to have. Yeah, remove. So again, definitely for the midterm for sure, and I guess in general, you just need to remember that what I just described you, like the functionality, how it works, and the fact that it has like these 3 methods. Okay, has next, next, remove. What else? The syntax. Okay, so on the array though, array is the simplest example. It's very unlikely that you'll be able to do it on the array. That's why most likely you're gonna have an iterator on array list. Java array list. Okay. Yeah, so that's the syntax. Iterator is an object, right? And the constructor would be the iterator. Okay. So here we can see how those guys creating an array list called list, right? An array list of strings. So basically, instead of an array, they're going to have an array list, which is, if you know array list, it's almost the same thing, right? But more dynamic. It's called a list, and it's an array list of strings. So instead of the numbers, they're going to have strings. Okay. Then they add in gigs. For gigs is computer science student portal, right? Then they print that list out, and then they create an iterator. Okay, iterator of strings, they're called iter, iter. And how do you create it? You just call the iterator method. Okay, that's something we on the array list. So you choose array list, you call iterator method that returns you the iterator which you assign to this iterator. And then what do? That's the canonical way of using the iterator is this. So that's definitely, yeah, so that's something which you definitely have to remember. The way usually the iterator is used is this. You basically say while iter dot has next. So while there is something, while there is an element of the array list behind the element you're looking at, while there is something else to traverse to, you traverse. While there is an element to traverse to, you do iter dot next. And then you can do whatever you want with this. For example, you can print it out. So system.out.print iter.next. Right? Yeah. For example, what if I copy this? Online GDB Java compiler Java da 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 da. Boom. Yeah, so let's try to run it now. Import java.util, illegal start. Okay. Oh. Okay, that was the wrong thing to do. No. I need to import only the main function. Okay. Okay. And I need to import this. So the iterators are usually not available by themselves. And the array lists are not available by themselves. That's why you need to import this library. Okay, yeah, it works, perfect. So the list is gigs. For gigs is a computer science student portal. The iterator values for the list are same thing, right? Printed them out. Now, let's imagine that I'm creating another element of that array list, and that's like 3 exclamation marks. Okay, so what do you think is going to happen? There'll be one more element which will be added to the list. Okay, so these after the portal, after the comma, you will see the exclamation points. Okay, and since there is one more element in the array list, there is one more element to traverse as well. Okay, so basically it's equal to me adding one more element over here, with the number, let's say, I don't know, 90. Okay, so I'm adding one more element to my array list, any kind of data structure. And in this case, when I'm traversing, there is one more element to traverse to. That means one more element should be printed out. Okay, so that's why if I run it, in both of the printouts, I should see those exclamation points. Yeah, so now I have one more element, one more string in that array list. And when I print that out, gigs for gigs is a computer science student portal. Whew. Yeah. So in other words, iterate is basically a way to traverse a data structure. The only nice thing about the iterator is this, that it works exactly the same way, and that's probably the only reason why you would ever use it. It works exactly the same way for array lists, for linked lists, double linked lists, any kind of linked list. Iterator works exactly the same way. You just create it, That's the step number 1. Step number 2, you just do the while loop, iterator that has next, print out, iterator, that next. That's it. No matter what kind of a data structure you have. That's the idea. Cool. Okay. Do you guys have any questions? Did that make sense? Yes, no, no, yes. Dun, 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 dun. 3 people, 3 people are watching me. That's actually one of the reasons why I don't like having review sessions, because there are some. So it's interesting, but there are very few students who have any questions. And whenever I had review sessions back in the day, and it was like I felt like it's absolutely useless thing, because like students just barely listening, they're bored, they do not practice. So that's why I decided to have review sessions. Q&A sessions instead of review sessions. That's 1. And 2, if the students don't have any questions, then I will just give more new material. Okay. Any questions? Because those were the only 2 questions I was asked. I was asked to talk about the format, the guideline, how the midterm number 2 will be held, and about the iterators. I have questions for quiz 7, 190. Not sure what all was needed. Quiz number 7, okay. Quiz number 7. Hold on. Blackboard FMU. Okay. One ninety. Quiz number 7. Okay. Okay, let's talk about quiz number 7 for 190 class. First question. Write the code which prints out he said hello, he said Java is fun. Okay, write the code which prints out he said Java is fun to the console. The idea is this. In the console, in the printout, in the terminal, the only thing which you need to see, right, if you do this question correctly, is he said, then quote mark, Java is fun, quote mark. Okay, so that's what you need to see in the printout. Like it needs to be shaped exactly that way. Okay, so now the trick is, if you think that the only thing it takes is to have a print statement, right? Println. Okay. If you think that that's how you're going to solve it, unfortunately you'll be wrong, because again, Java is going to think that that is the beginning of a string, right? So in Java we encompass all the strings with the quote marks. Java is going to think that that's the beginning of the string. Java is going to think that that's the end of the string, right? Java is not going to think that that's actually what you want to put in that output in the print line. Okay, so that's why this will create an error. You see? Okay, so it says that parentheses expected, okay, but unfortunately it's very misleading, and a lot of times that's what happens. Java compiler cannot really tell you what's really going on, because it's not as smart, and it's very difficult to create a smart compiler. But yeah, so that's not going to work, unfortunately. In order to print out, so since Java is thinking that any quote mark is either beginning or the end of the string, the question is how do I print it out, right? Like at all. In order to do that, we need to so-called escape it. We need to use the escape sequence. If I want to print out the quote mark, I need to put a backslash before the quote mark. Okay, in this case, Java is going to think, okay, so basically this is treated literally. It's a command to Java to say that, hey, like I want this quote mark to be printed out. Do not treat it as the beginning or the end of the string. And in this case, that's going to work. Okay, he said Java is fun. So in that case, again, this printout is exactly what it's supposed to be. Is exactly what I was asking for. Okay, so this will be printed out to the console. Now, question number 2. For the rest of the questions, okay, so for all the questions, now starting from 2 and up until 8, for the rest of the questions, let's say there is a string A, which is hello Java. String A, which contains hello Java in it. Okay, what does a length function do, and what does it return? So a.length function returns the number of characters you have in a string, the length of the string, which is counted, which is calculated as the number of characters in the string. So how many characters do we have in the string? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, 11 characters. Keep in mind that you need to count the spaces. You need to count all the tabs as one character, exclamation points, all the digits. Okay, so for example, if you have like 91, that's a number which is comprised of 2 digits, so it's 2 characters. Okay, hello Java. Yeah, so this function returns the number, or it calculates and returns the number of characters you have in a string. What does it return? In our particular case, that length. So that length which is applied to what? To A. That length which is applied to our function, to our particular string A, would return the number of characters we have in our A. So it's going to return 11. So the right answer is A.length calculates and returns the number of characters in the string. In our case, it returns 11. What does A to uppercase function do? What does it return? So A.uppercase function returns the string A with all the characters being uppercase. Okay. What does it return? It returns hello Java. So it returns this. That's what it returns. What else? What does A that equals hello function do? What does it return? So A that equals function compares the string hello and the string A. It returns true if they're the same, and if it returns false if they're not the same. Okay, so in our case, what does it return? It returns false because hello, this as a string, is different from hello Java, obviously. Okay, so those are 2 different strings. They contain different characters, different set of characters. Those 2 things are not the same. What does A that contains hello Java function do? What does it return? So A that contains hello Java function returns true if hello Java is a substring, or it's a part of a string of A. Okay, if A contains hello Java inside of A. Okay, and returns true if it does contain it inside. It returns true if hello Java is a so-called substring. It's a smaller portion of A, right? Or otherwise it returns false. In our case, what does it return? It returns false. Why does it return false? Because this string is not a part of this string. Those are actually completely 2 different strings. So for example, if I said Java, that would, like Java like this, that would also return false. Why? Because Java, like spelled that way, is different from this Java. Because here we have a lowercase letter, here we have an uppercase letter. Okay, so even if it was Java, that would not be contained inside of this string. If I had, like, for example, ELLO, okay, so if I had that small substring, so if I said A that contains ELLO, like spelled exactly that way, in that case it would return true, because ELO would be contained within the string A. Yeah, so in our particular case, it returns false. What does A dot ignore case? hello Java function do? What does it return? So a dot equals ignore case compares string A and compares the string hello Java, ignoring the case. So it's very similar to this compare. The only difference is that it doesn't care about the case. Is that lowercase letters or capital case letter? It just doesn't do that. Technically, what's happening behind the scenes is that hello Java, both this string and this string A, they've been converted into, I think, uppercase letters, and then they being run. Then this function is being run. I think that's what happens behind the scenes. But anyway, so it compares this and this, okay, ignoring the case. So if you don't care about the case, if you don't worry about the case, are those strings the same? That's the question you should be asking yourself. Equals ignore case, right? So if we compare this and compare this, the only difference between these two strings is lowercase h versus capital case H, lowercase j versus capital case J, right? So if we ignore the case, they're the same. Other than that, they're the same. That's why in our case, what does it return? It returns true. Returns true. What does a.index of e function do? What does it return? So a.index of e, what does it do? It's trying to find. So it returns the first index. The index of the first occurrence of this e. Okay. So in other words, it's trying to find e starting from the left. It goes like it searches for lowercase e in our entire string starting from the left. Okay, starting from the beginning. Starting from like this side over here, it searches for e. So can it find e if it just like traverses all the characters? Yes, it can. So that's our e. Okay, and if it finds e inside of our string, it returns the position of that e. In our case, what is the position? So that's 0. We'll always start counting from 0, right? So h, capital H, has the 0th position. Lowercase e has first position. Like index will be equal to 1. Okay. In other words, if the index of lowercase e in our string is 1, and that's what it's going to return. Okay. So what does it do? It finds and returns the index of the first occurrence of the letter lowercase e. Okay. In our case, what does it return? It returns 1 because e, lowercase e, is located in the first position. Now, a very good question would be is this. For example, what if I asked you, and that's what I'm going to do at the very end. What does a.index L function return? Why? So what does it return, right? It's going to try to find capital case L in this string. And is it possible to find it? No, because we have a couple of L's, but those are lowercase, so they do not count, unfortunately. That's why it's impossible to find a capital case L. In this case, what it's going to do, it's going to return -1. Why -1? That's kind of the industry standard. -1 means that a capital case L, or whatever letter you specified here, is impossible to be found in the string A. Okay, so in this particular case, what does it return? It returns -1 because why? Because capital case L is not in this string. It just doesn't exist in this string. Moving on. Oh, that's it. Yeah, cool. Okay, that's it. Yeah, those are all the questions. So I saw some people. I don't know. I think some students confused, like, what's the difference between the two? They thought it's the same thing. Although what I meant was, like, what does it do in general, and what does it return specifically for this A? Okay, and they were just kind of answering this question. So that's why, like, I was lenient for that, and I actually gave partial credit. So if they answered only this question correctly, I would give, for example, 7 out of 10 points instead of 5. Or 8. Any other questions? Willem, did that help? Did I answer your questions? Keep in mind that I have a delay in the streaming, by the way, so that's why I'm asking a question. Then only in maybe a minute, I think, only a minute, I'm going to receive an answer. Like if you type something in. So from the yeah, I think the way YouTube works is that, like, from the moment I say something, you hear that in a minute. Yeah. Cool. Dun 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 dun. What else? What else? Read the question of the quizzes, or to mention the lectures, iterators. Yeah. It helps some. Tell me what's still causing issues. So like, what's is there anything which you still don't feel comfortable with? Maybe some so mention this specifically the question you don't feel comfortable with. By the way, if you feel uncomfortable with any of that, what you can do is this. You can just copy the code. Okay, string and hello Java. Okay. And then you can just practice with all of those methods. So for example, you can say print ln, okay, A to uppercase, and then you can copy paste that like a few times, and then just say this. Da, 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 da. Contains hello Java. Hello Java. Those quotes not formatted correctly. What else? Da, 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 da. Yeah. Okay, let's run it. Something is expected. What's expected? Okay, over here. Pam 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 pam. A that index off. Okay, awesome. Cool. So A dot to uppercase. Okay, so what does it return? It returns hello Java, okay, into uppercase, so being transformed into uppercase letters. A that equals hello. Hold on. Cool. A that equals hello. So compares again hello with hello Java. Are they the same? No. That's why it's going to return false. A that contains hello Java. Okay. Yeah. For example, so let's say you're not really sure, like for example, how this works. You can definitely experiment with this. You can add some digits. Is it going to change anything? Not really, because you can't really transform digits into uppercase letters, right? So like, yeah, to uppercase doesn't have any effect on digits. It doesn't have any effect on spacing. For example, if I say T, if I put a tab there, nothing's going to change. Yeah. So I don't know, if my string is already uppercase, then also nothing's going to change. Okay. Now, yeah. So I just don't think that this particular method is that interesting. I think it's like very straightforward. Just whatever you have, just take any text, convert that to uppercase letters, all the letters to uppercase letters. Uppercase letters don't do anything with them. Lowercase letters have been converted into uppercase letters. Okay. That's it. Now equals. What does equals do? It returns true if this string is exactly the same as this string. Exactly the same. Exactly. Symbol to symbol. Everything should be like exactly like just like yeah. It's comparing ASCII codes, but the way you should probably think about it is comparing the symbols exactly how they laid out. Okay. Symbol to symbol. For example, this of course returns as false. Okay. Now, if we put exactly the same string there, is that gonna change anything? Okay, so it's true, you see? So I'm comparing hello Java with hello Java, and all the characters are exactly the same, okay? And now it returns true. However, if I add or remove a tiny bit, a tiny thing, for example, if I had a space here, right, which you may not even notice, or let's say here I have a dot and here I have a comma. Okay, so there is tiny difference. Once you have the tiny difference, it's going to change that to false. You see, it's false now. Okay, so now it's not the same. Hello Java and this hello Java. Okay. So that should be true. Okay. Now, if I add a space here, for example, that also will be false because, again, they're not exactly the same anymore. Not exactly the same. Okay. Oh, sorry, equals. Oh, no. Oh, I was talking about no. Sorry. I should have been talking about equals. This one. Not contains. Equals. Okay. Let me. Make it a bit simpler to read. Okay, so equals hello Java, that returns true, right? That's true. Now, if I add a space there, if I implement a tiny difference, that it's already going to return false. If I, for example, substitute that with exclamation mark, then it's also going to return false. Okay. What else? Moving on. Yeah, and for example, if I have instead of capital case H, I have lowercase h, that's also going to return false because now the strings are not the same. So the strings are the same. The strings are considered to be the same. If and only if all the characters exactly match. So exactly the same sequence, and the characters are exactly the same. So lowercase letters have only lowercase. In both cases, you have lowercase or uppercase letters, right? So you're not mixing the case either. Okay, so that's not going to work. What else? Contains. It returns true if the string you are specifying here, for example, hello, is contained within the string A. Okay, so if this hello is somewhere inside the string A, in this case it returns true. For example, you see this hello is actually contained in the string A, right? Because hello is like uppercase letters, and here we also have uppercase letters, right? So in that case, it's going to return true. Let's watch it. Okay, it does return true. However, if, for example, I put, I don't know, if I say hello, but one of the letters will be lowercase, okay? In this case, unfortunately, we cannot say that this string A contains hello, right? It does contain hello, but with different characters. It contains hello with uppercase O, and here we have lowercase o, right? So that string technically is not inside of this string, and that's why contains, and that's how the contains work. Contains checks if this string is contained, if this string is in this string. In this case, it's going to return false. Why? Again, because this hello Java string does not contain this word hello, because of this character O. Okay, if I remove it though, that's going to be true. That's going to be true now. Okay, so hell is contained within hello Java. Okay, if for example I say L, just L. Okay, is that going to be true? Yes, it will. It's going to be true because a string which contains only one character L can be found here. What if, for example, I put a space? Okay, so space a string which contains a single character space is also can be found in the string A. Hello Java. Here's where you have the space. Okay, yeah. So A that contains checks if the string in parentheses cannot be found, can be contained in the string A. Is contained within the string A. Moving on to the next one, equals ignore case. Again, it's basically what it does. It's going to convert A and the string in parentheses into uppercase, both of them, and then it's going to compare them. Or in other words, it basically compares this string with this string without thinking about the case, uppercase, lowercase letters. Okay, so those characters can be of any case, as long as the sequence of those characters is the same. This function is going to return true. So for example, like hello Java, okay, something like this. Would that return true? Yes, it will. Okay, because the only difference between this string and this string is the case of the characters. Okay, now if I change this to capital J, right, this to L, what do you think is going to happen? It's going to be the same thing. Again, the only difference, again, it doesn't care about the cases. The only difference between this string and this string is still the case of the letters. However, if for example I introduce a new character, right? So if I remove a character, what's going to happen is going to return false, right? Because now not only the case is the problem, but also that dot. So now, like this string has fewer characters than this string. Those two strings are not the same, even if you ignore the case. That's why it returns false. Okay. Now index. So what index of does, it's trying to find this character in the string, and if it finds it, it's going to return the index. If it doesn't, it's going to return -1. For example, in this particular case, if I'm searching for E, right? Well, let's say for J. Okay. If I'm searching for J, what's going to happen? It's going to find it successfully, right? Because J is in our string. Now, then it's going to calculate the position of the J. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so J is located there in the 6th position. Okay, J is in the 6th position. That's why it's going to be 6 is going to be returned. So we run it, and then we see 6. Okay. Now, what if I try to search for H, capital case H? It's going to be 0. Why 0? 0 is because H can be found in this string, right? And what is the position of that capital case H? Is 0. Because in computer science, we always start counting indices from 0. Okay, so H is located in the string A, and it's in the 0th position. Next, now a tricky part. For example, if I'm searching for L, what happens is this: L, yes, true, L can be found in the string. However, there are two L's. That's the L, and that's the L. Or, for example, if I search for A, okay, so true, yes, A can be found in the string. However, there are two A's. That's the A, that's the A. So what should we do? Should I return the index of the first A or the second A? Okay. And the answer is, the way Java works and this particular method works is the following. It's going to return the first occurrence of the character A, of that character, if there are more than one character, more than one occurrence of that character. So for example, if I have like one A, if I have two A's, if I have like that many A's, right? Okay, so which one to return? It's going to return the first occurrence, which means is when it starts searching for it, it goes from left to the right, from left to right. Okay, and it's going to return the first position, the position of the first A. In our case, that's the first A. Okay, and what's the position? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7. So that should return me 7. Okay, that's the 7. What else? Yeah. Another trick is this: what if I try to what if I try to search for an element which is not in the string, which doesn't exist there? For example, what if I ask you to search for an element H? So H, technically, this particular H, lowercase h, is not contained, is not inside the string A. Okay, so this H and this H are two different things, unfortunately. That's why they do not match. They're two different things. And yeah, so this letter H cannot be found in this string. And in this particular case, the way that's being resolved, right, the way this function works is that it's going to return -1. -1. So when it turns -1, that means that letter does not exist in this string. -1. Yeah. So it's not there. It's not in the string. That's the index of. Equals to lowercase, contains equals to uppercase. Yeah. Now there are many more other functions which you may actually be curious about. So for example, if I Google string Java, API, yeah. Okay. So let's see what other functions we have for strings. There are a huge amount of them. Okay. So let's see. Yeah. Character add. And some of them actually, the most important ones I provided in the slides, and they will be on the midterm as well. So for example, contains, okay, character add, compares to strings. Well, that's not as important to know this. Concat contains, okay, copy value of ends with, ends with, for example. Okay, so it's going to return true if the suffix where the suffix, this string is located at the end of the string. We call that on. Equals in our case, format, get bytes, get characters, hash code, index of. Okay, that's what we're doing. Index of starting from the index is empty. Last index of length. Yeah, you do not. You see how many of them there are. You do not have to know all of them in your career, and you definitely do not have to all of them for the midterm number 2. For the second midterm, you just need to know the ones which are described in the slides, and that's maybe like, I don't know, quarter, maybe 25% of what you see here. Probably even less. Okay, other questions? Ask me questions. Okay, should I say anything else? By the way, question for you guys. So there are 4 people who are watching me now. Tell me, do you have any professors who are using Blackboard Ultra? Because so if you have, what is your experience with this? Because I saw some students struggling with it because it's not perfect. It's difficult, like connection-wise. If some student doesn't have the best internet connection, he actually cannot participate in the class, and just doesn't get the best experience, I guess. So it's not as flawless as it's supposed to be. Do you guys have any professors who are using Blackboard Ultra? Okay. If you guys don't have any other so how are other professors managing the online education then? How are they doing it? Do they use Zoom? Or they just publish like the online lectures, but they do that in the what is it? Maybe they just publish the slides. Maybe that's what they do. I'll need to. As far as I know, I didn't think so. Collaborative, yes. Okay. Gotcha. Okay, cool. So if you guys don't have any questions, let's finish up here. We're actually been online for 1 hour. Okay, so I guess I really hope that the virus and the whole this situation, the panic, does not impact you and your families, especially financially. I really hope that one does PowerPoint shows, another does video lessons. PowerPoint shows, okay, yeah, yeah. That's what that's what feels to me is the best thing as well. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So I really hope that the coronavirus doesn't impact you personally and your families. I really hope that your relatives are staying safe and healthy. I really hope that none of your relatives and you either. I really hope that you guys didn't lose your jobs, because I know that a lot of people are losing their jobs because of this whole thing, and it's very unfortunate. I've actually recently been talking to some people in IT, and I was who've been like in IT for like 30, 40 years, huge amount of time. And I was asking them about coronavirus, how it's going to impact it, and I'll probably record a completely separate video about that. But the idea was, they told me that IT and programming in general is a difficult, is less volatile fields. So if there is a crisis, if there is a recession, uh, either a crisis or recessions, the first thing which is going to happen is that it's going to it's going to impact them, all the service-based businesses. For example, if you're, I don't know, if you do graphic design, if you do, especially if you're small, especially like, for example, if you're freelancer, right? If you do graphic design or I don't know, videography, photography, like service-based businesses, those businesses which are not considered to be not essential, unfortunately, they suffer first. Okay, so people cancel them, people cancel the orders, or people cancel the contracts with them first. When you're working for a big IT company, when there is like, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of like dollars, they usually have bigger budgets. They usually, especially if you're working for a big company, for example, if you're working for, I don't want to say like Microsoft or Amazon, or like Accenture, I think is one of them. So like if you're working for a company with huge amount of employees, it's more, those companies are more stable. It doesn't mean that they're not going to fire anyone. They're just very unlikely to go out of business. Okay, so yeah. When I was talking to them, what they told me is this: that first off, and obviously nobody really knows how serious it's going to be, how severe the impact is going to be on the economy, and how long it will take for the whole thing to get back to normal. That's one. But just judging by what happened like in 2008, 2012, during the dot-com crash, what they experienced is this again. So the IT industry and the software engineering, software development industry is not impacted as much, and it usually takes some time to impact them. That's one. Number two, there is so during the recession, during the crisis, what companies are trying to do, they're trying to minimize all the costs, right? So all the expenses, yeah, minimize all the expenses. That's why one of the biggest expenses for the software engineering industry is people from foreign countries, from different countries, and specifically from India, Um, and because they're bringing them for on H-1B visas, like working visas. Not sure if you know. I noticed that Americans usually don't know those details. But all of those programmers who are brought over from different countries, they need to be sponsored. So there's actually a huge amount of money people need to pay for them to be sponsored, right? And that's of course, and you can't really, so you have talked to that person, right, over Skype, but you didn't really meet him, and it's always kind of risky when you bring in somebody over with a different culture. That's why those guys. That's why companies usually cancel their relationships or like the promises to those people, the people overseas. Okay, so like, people who are within the United States, kind of, it's they're safer. They're safer. But still, if the economy is in a like really bad position and the companies have to fire somebody, they'll be firing the people who bring the least amount of value, and unfortunately, it will be like somebody like us, somebody like the interns, and people who are recently were brought to the company, people who bring the least amount of value. So if you have a manager, if you have a person who's been working in IT for 20 years and he's a senior developer, of course he can bring much more value. He can do like what are you doing, or like junior software developers doing, like I don't know, whatever takes you, I don't know, like 1 month, it would take him, I don't know, 3 days to develop that. And of course they're going to bring of course they're going to keep him versus you. Yes, and unfortunately, yeah. So like interns and junior developers, people who bring the least amount of value, and at the very beginning of your career, that would be you guys. Unfortunately, those are the people who'll be fired first. Yeah, that's actually a very important thing. That's something to be aware of. You definitely, when you're working for a company, it's very important that you need to be bringing value. You need to be bringing not the least amount of value among your peers, okay? Or at least your boss, your manager, needs to think that it's better when he thinks that you bring in a huge amount of value. Although you may be thinking it's not true, okay? But if in his opinion you bring in a lot of value, more than everybody else, that's a very good thing. So for example, if you're working for a small company, right, or if you're working, let's say, in a company, let's say somewhere in South Carolina, and you are the smartest out of all your peers, then you're unlikely to be fired, right? So they will, well, first off, they will get rid of everybody else, and then like they'll fire you. They will lay you off. But if you work in, let's say, for a company like, I don't know, where all your peers are from MIT, and you're the least valuable person there, although you're as smart as you were like back in South Carolina, and in this case, of course, they will. If they have to fire someone, they'll have to fire you. And it's nothing personal, it's just business. But yeah, and it usually happens like quickly. So I saw some people actually being fired over the email. So they would like, they would just wake up, they would check the phone, and there is an email from the employer saying like, "Don't come to work. That's it. We're done." Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So one professor is posting videos on the Blackboard. Now is doing Zoom meetings. Okay. Professor Rajo just says you read the chapter and take online quiz. Okay. Yeah. That's also possible. Anyway, cool. Again, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Hope it helped to like 4 of you who actually watched it. I also really hope that again that you are not impacted by the virus. I'll see you guys later. Bye bye.